What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt Cavill with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Eddie Hearn, Canelo Alvarez, and Haymon. Eddie Hearn, on a recent IFL television interview, stated that he had to step down in order to secure Canelo's fight with Caleb Plant because the PBC with Haymon didn't want him directly involved with the negotiations. And it was said that they would have made it more difficult if Eddie Hearn was a part of it. Haymon doesn't like Eddie Hearn, therefore he didn't want Eddie Hearn a part of the negotiations whatsoever. And let me counterpunch. I think that when you have a dislike, and if I've told you guys before, I'll say it again. Whenever you have two guys that naturally don't like each other, I don't know what Eddie Hearn's feelings are about Haymon, but Haymon doesn't care for Eddie Hearn, people. He does not. He does not care for Eddie Hearn. He doesn't like Eddie Hearn. And and you can tell by now, there's a lot of fights that should have been made. Now looking back on what we know, if it wasn't for Haymon or the relationship between Haymon and Eddie Hearn. Okay, and if you understand that, if you know that, well, hey, if Canelo would have went with Eddie Hearn, which he's still representing Canelo, but if he wouldn't have used Eddie Reynoso instead of Eddie Hearn as the representative to speak with Tim Brown and Haymon, that fight wouldn't have never been done. Okay, you can revisit after revisit, and it just shows you it's sad, because what does your personal opinion have to do with business? Okay, now, knowing what we know, let's look back on the fights that didn't get made because it was Haymon and Eddie Hearn involved. Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, right? Those fights weren't done. Haymon knew where to pull the plug. He knew where to push the button. He knew what to do for that fight not to happen. See, he was the advisor, okay? So that's why he said what he said about, oh, that's Mayweather's training money, training camp money, to Deontay Wilder, to get him all riled up and pissed off and felt disrespected, because it was a foul shit to say to Deontay Wilder. But he said it nonetheless, okay? That's the word around the campfire anyway, right? Allegedly. But strong sources have said that's what he told Deontay Wilder, all right? And you see that $100 million deal slip through Deontay Wilder's grasp because he believed in his advisor, Haymon. That's one. Two, how about Joshua Luis Ortiz? Do you guys know how weird it was with Luis Ortiz and Joshua, where Anthony Joshua calls out Ortiz and they send him and his team a contract, and all of a sudden, without Luis Ortiz knowing about his team had already made a decision for him without even consulting with him? Who do you think that was about, and who do you think was the reason for that? Haymon. Okay, but why? Because it's Eddie Hearn. As long as Anthony Joshua is with Eddie Hearn, I don't think you'll see a Deontay Wilder Anthony Joshua fight. I don't care if they win twice. I don't care if they win the next two fights, you won't see it. Because based on what we know, Haymon doesn't like Eddie Hearn, so he makes it as difficult as possible to make these fights. So what's the guarantee these fights will be made? Counterpunch. So people can say what they want, like, oh, well, hey, well, Anthony Joshua's ducking. No. Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn are the ones sending the offers in this situation because they want them to fight on a certain platform, right? Okay, it might not even be that way when these guys fight, if they ever fight, or when they come to the negotiation table, right? So Haymon didn't like that because he couldn't have control over that, because that's not his platform. You know what I mean? So that totally throws his expertise out of the window, right? Now with the Luis Ortiz, they bribed him by promising him a fight, which he got against Deontay Wilder in a rematch, right? But he could have fought for the unified undisputed championship, not just the WBC, which he's already been there, done that. Okay, so the sport of boxing is being corrupted by people that don't like each other, and that shouldn't reflect business at all. That's why it's petty. It's real petty when you think about these fights that could be made and they don't get made. Imagine Ortiz, Joshua in 2019. That would have been great. Shit, that was over 2.5 years ago almost now. Right? So that fight would have took place. That would have been a great fight. But if it wasn't for Haymon. Now, why doesn't Haymon, the question I want to know, why does Haymon hate Eddie Hearn? I might make a poll, but I don't know, because I don't know what the personal thing is about Al Haymon. I haven't seen or heard Eddie Hearn ever disrespect Al Haymon or say anything derogatory about Al Haymon. So, that's one of those things I want to know, but it's crazy why they did not specifically want Eddie Hearn involved in that negotiation. Right, so that's crazy to me. But anyway, I was just dropping that for you. You guys tell me what you think of Eddie Hearn's comments. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been counterpunching. Peace.